රිදෙන ජීවිතේ.
Newsfirst. Main sponsor.
LB Yasa Isuru. Unparalleled rewards for a trusted deposit.
A very good evening to you. You're watching Prime Time News. I'm Shatrang Haporachi. This is News First, where the people come first. First, let's take a look at headlines. Tensions flare as police intervene during protests at Mainagogama. One protester hospitalized. New council proposed to decide appointment of Prime Minister and Cabinet.
ඇමති මණ්ඩලයක් ප්‍රධාන වශයෙන්ම ඒ ජාතික සභාව කියන ආකාරයට තමයි කටයුතු කළ යුතු වෙන්නේ.
Trade unions continue protests demanding President and Prime Minister's resignation.
Order, yonder, go.
4 police officers remanded over Rabukkana shooting. SSP of police admitted to hospital. Central bank's new plans to bring dollars to the country. On to those stories in detail. Tensions arose during protests opposite the Prime Minister's residence in Colombo today. Police had intervened to disperse the protesters demanding the resignation of the government.
Protests opposite the Prime Minister's residence in Colombo ran into its 5th day today. In what was seen as a measure against the protest, buses were parked on the pavement during the last few days. Tensions arose when police attempted to remove placards fixed onto these vehicles by protesters.
පොලිසිය මැරෙන්නේ මෙන්න මේ වෙලාවේ. මේ බලය අයුතු ලෙස භාවිතා කිරීම. අපි සාමකාමීව ගෙනෙච්ච මේ ආණ්ඩුවට අවශ්‍යතාවක් දෙනවා ගැටුමක් නිර්මාණය කරන්න. ආණ්ඩුව කරන්නේ මේකට බස් දාලා දෙන්න අපේද. මෙච්චර දවස් මේ නාත්තලා තියෙන බස් එකක්වත් පොලිසිය නෙමෙයි ඒගොල්ලෝ දන්නේ නැහැ කියලා කිව්වා කවුද ඇවිල්ලා නැවතුනේ කියලා. බස් දැන් කියනවා මේවා අපේ බස්ලු. බස් එක වයින් කරන්නේ නැහැ. ඒ වයින් කරන්නේ නැහැ. ඒවා වෙන දේවල් නෙමෙයි. බස් එක ආණ්ඩුවෙන් දාපු එකද බෙද අයින් කරන්නේ. මේවා අයින් වුණොත් ඒක ඔක්කොම අයින් වෙයි. දැන් බලෙන් ඇවිල්ලා බෝට් එක සේම ගලවනවා. නෑ බලෙන් ඔයගොල්ලෝ ඔක්කොම ඇවිල්ලා මෙතන වාඩි වුණා. දැන් මෙතන වාඩි වුණොත් බලෙන් ඇවිල්ලා කිව්වා මේ බස් එක අපිට පොරොන්දු නෙමෙයි. ඒක අයින් වෙන්නේ නෑ. නෑ ඔබතුමා ඔබතුමාගේ බස් කියලා කිව්වොත් කියලා ඒක අයින් වුණාම ඒක අයින් වෙනවා. නෑ මේ බස් ඔබතුමාගේ අපිට වාට පේනවනේ කාගෙද? අපි ආයි පෝට් ගහුවට ප්‍රශ්න නෑනේ. බස් එකයි කරන්නේ බලන්න. මෙතනදී පදික වේදිකාවේ තිබ්බ මේ වහලේ ගැලවුවා මේ පදික වේදිකාව ඔක්කොම හරස් කරලා මේ බස් දාලා අපිට නැගිට ගන්න බල නැහැ. දැන් පැය 40ක් පළාංගරට අපි මඩ ඉන්නේ. අහිංසක ජනතාව වෙනනම් අපි මේ අරගෙන මේ බල්ලවල අපි අට්ට ගල්ලා දැම්මා. අපි නිදාසේ පාර ජනතාවට කරදරයක් නැතුව අපි මේ දේ කරේ. පොලිස් බස් එක අංකයක් ගන්න पेमेंट के नवත්තන්න පුළුවන් පොලිස් එකට. අපේ වාහන නවත්තන්න බැරියයි. අපේ වාහන නවත්තන්න බැරියයි. අපිත් බයද? බස් එක ගන්න බස් ඕගොල්ලෝ යන්න. ඕගොල්ලෝ යන්න. අයි යන්න. අපි යන්න. දෙවි ගාලානේ.
मैं कहते हैं आगे वही कभी तक बेस्ट बस ये बात नहीं मारे मेरा नहीं जानते वाला
One protester was hospitalized with injuries today. Some lawyers filed a complaint with the Kolpiti police over the incident.
Buses have been parked on the pavement for many days. That is unlawful. It is being done with the knowledge of the Kolpiti police. There are different laws for temple trees and ordinary citizens. There is only one motor traffic law. Vehicles can't be parked on the pavement under this law. The Kolpiti police has nothing to inform court. The police can remove vehicles that are blocking the pavement. We can see that there is massive pressure. They are trying to disrupt the demonstration.
Former President Maithripala Sirisena says President Gotabaya Rajapaksa has agreed to appoint an interim cabinet led by a new Prime Minister. He spoke to reporters after a meeting with the President this afternoon.
Lawmakers from 11 government constituent parties who are now sitting independently met with President Gotabaya Rajapaksa today. During the meeting, a proposal had been tabled to set up a national council led by the President and built up of political party leaders joining the interim government.
The President responded positively to set up an interim cabinet led by a new Prime Minister. We will need a small cabinet of about 15 or 20 ministers with a new Prime Minister under this interim government. The cabinet will be vested with the task of carrying out the duties of an interim government. The President also agreed to set up a national council. It will make decisions on the appointment of the Prime Minister and ministers and other issues in the country. The National Council will decide on the appointment of ministry secretaries, IGP, Attorney General. The President and the Cabinet will have to act according to the advice of the National Council.
However, MP Vasudeva Nayakkara said the removal of the Prime Minister had not been discussed at the meeting.
අගමැතිතුමා ඉවත් කරනවා කියලා කිව්වද?
නෑ මේ වගේ කතා කරන්නේ. අවසානයේ අපි එකඟ වුණා. අනිකුත් සියලු පක්ෂත් එක්ක කතා කරලා මේ වැඩේට එකඟ කරව ගන්න පුළුවන් හැම උත්සාහයක්ම දරන.
ජනාධිපතිතුමා මොකද කියන්නේ?
ජනාධිපතිතුමා කිව්වා මගෙන් කෙරෙන්න ඕන ටිකත් මං කරන්න. ඕනනම් එක් කරගෙන එන්න මං කතා කරන්න.
අගමැති ජනාධිපතිතුමා යන පාටක් නැද්ද?
ජනාධිපති.
ඔව් දැන් මේ ජනතාව කියනනේ යන්න කියලා. ඒකට මොකද කිව්වේ?
ඒක ඉතින් මම අපිත් අනුමත කරන්නේ.
Only lawmakers from 11 parties attended the meeting, although it was to be attended by all government parties and independent parliamentarians. Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksha or the Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna were not present. SLPP General Secretary Sagara Karyavasam told Newsfirst his party is studying the proposals that were discussed at today's meeting. SLPP parliamentarians had met with the President yesterday. Parliamentarian Namal Rajapaksha later tweeted that all main parties have to come together to form an interim all-party government. He said having two factions of the SLPP come together to form the government again will only extend the existing coalition. The President's media division says 5 parliamentarians who attended today's meeting have been nominated to continue talks for an all-party government. The media division quoted the President as saying that he would accept the proposals of these representatives if they receive the support of all political parties. Anunayaka of the Malwatu chapter of the Siam sect, Most Venerable Nyangoda Vijita Sirithero, raised concerns regarding the solutions to the prevailing economic crisis. This was during a visit by some government parliamentarians today.
10 government parliamentarians have written to the President requesting him to establish an interim government. Both the President and the Prime Minister have agreed to it. However, Anura Kumara and the opposition leader are not in favour of an interim government.
මෙතන තීරණාත්මකයි මනින්දවායි එනවා ජාතික නායකයෙක් වුණා විශාල ගම්බීර කරගෙන එතකොට පාර්ලිමේන්තුවේ මොකක්ද එතකොට සිවිල් ප්‍රවාසීත් කරන්නේ මෙතන නායකයට ආවෙන්නේ කොයිතරම් චෝදනාවලට අර ජිනීවා අපරාධවලට මේ අගනට ඇතුළේ තියෙන ආර්ථික අභිවෘද්ධියේ මේකේ ප්‍රධාන සාධකය විදේශ වත්කම් අපගන්න විදේශ වත්කම් හොයා ගැනීමයි කළ යුත්තේ. අපි අන්තර්ජාල පාලනය අහලා මේ ආර්ථික අභිවෘද්ධිය ඉවර වෙනවද ඒ ලැබෙනවද ගෑස් ලැබෙනවද නොලැබෙන දැන් කතා මොනවා හරි විදේශීය
Buddhist monks say they will take action if the requests made by the chief prelates calling on the government to resign is not taken into account. The chief prelates have proposed an interim government with a few ministers. They want a government with a new prime minister. They want it to be run by experts and to reduce the powers of the president. That is what the chief prelates and the people want. The president is speaking of an all-party government. He has misunderstood what we said. He tries to avoid taking the blame by saying that the parties didn't respond favorably to his invitation. About 1,000 monks will march towards Colombo tomorrow. We wish to tell those in power that if they don't listen to our demands, the Mahasangha will issue a statement with the permission of the chief prelates denouncing all politicians.
සියලුම දේශපාලකයන් සියලු කටයුතු වලදී ප්‍රතික්ෂේප කරන තත්වයකට නියෝගයක් මහා සංඝරත්නය වෙතින් පළ කරන්නට අප බලාපොරොත්තු වෙනවා.
දැන් එතුමා මහානායක ස්වාමින් වහන්සේලාගේ ඉල්ලීමට යටත් වෙන්නේ නැහැ. අපි තීන්දුව කළා මහින්ද රාජපක්ෂ මහත්තයා.
He isn't listening to the appeals of the chief prelates. Mahinda Rajapaksa had said he is willing to resign, but that we have to gather all opposition parties represented in parliament. We will do this at the Sri Lankan Foundation Institute at 7 p.m. tomorrow. We will bring together opposition parties and then ask Mahinda Rajapaksa to go home and to create a peaceful country. Mahinda Rajapaksa will have to resign. We wish to tell that the entire country must rally for this cause.
ඔබතුමා දැන් ගෙදර යන්න සාමකාමී රටක් හදන්න කියලා. මහින්ද රාජපක්ෂ මහත්තයා යන්න වෙනවා. ඒ සඳහා මුළු රටම පෙළගස්සනවායි කියන එකත් පැහැදිලිව අපි කියන්නට ඕන.
A Sangha Council meeting has been called for tomorrow at the All Ceylon Buddhist Congress in Bauddhaloka Mawatha. Afterwards, the Mahasangha will march and present a document outlining our demands. The first demand is the resignation of the Prime Minister. After that, we will call for a meeting of the party leaders in Parliament. We will advise the party leaders. All the party leaders have agreed to come. Minister G.L. Pires informed me this morning of a decision taken by the government. He informed me that the Prime Minister will not resign. He told me that given such a background, they are not willing to come to the meeting. He is the one saying the Prime Minister will not resign. Him, the Prime Minister and his followers must come to this location.
A recent poll by the Centre for Policy Alternatives has shown that 96.2% of Sri Lankans believe that all politicians should be audited and that their unaccounted wealth should be confiscated. According to the poll, 87.3% of Sri Lankans want President Gotabaya Rajapaksa to resign, while 89.7% want the resignation of Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa. The poll, involving 1,200 participants, showed that 55.9% wanted all 225 parliamentarians to resign. 74% had said the executive presidency must be abolished. 88% of Sri Lankans have either been in line or had a family member stay in line to obtain essential items such as gas, fuel, milk powder and fertilizer over the past month. 90% of Sri Lankans have had their income or their family's income affected as a result of the current economic crisis. Protests at Golface opposite the President's office in Colombo ran into its 21st day today. Rochelle Tumodara brings us the latest.
Right now, I'm opposite the President's office right here in Golface, where the people's struggle have been happening for more than 2 weeks now.
රාජපක්ෂ පඩලල ඉල්ලන්නේ මෙන්න මේ ජනතා බලයක් ගොඩනගන්න අවසාන වශයෙන් මං හිතන්නේ දේශපාලනිකව මේ අරගලය අපිට.
Meanwhile, professionals in the IT industry also took part in the protest in Golface today.
So as professionals, we have been problem solvers for decades. And now, if we can't solve this problem at this point of time, we will be cursed by the other generation. So that's why IT professionals like other professionals had to come out to the road and protest.
The Rajapaksas are not moving, and we as a nation have to come forward and make sure they move. And I want to share this with you. Please remember, there is a thin line between a good human being and a good citizen. This is the time that you need to demonstrate being a good citizen and exercise your democratic right to come here and participate in this peaceful protest.
The Sri Lanka Agrarian Development Officers Union added their voice to the protests today. Farmers and the people have been affected. They have been forced to take to the streets. We came here on behalf of them. We are calling on the government to resign and allow a capable person to take over.
This corrupt government must be chased away. We can't allow them to continue murders, thefts and looting of our money. We will win this struggle.
Venerable Polonnaruwa Dimbulagala Ruhunugama Ratna Lankara Thero continued his fast today. I didn't come here simply because I can. I don't have the money to pay the bus fare. Gotabe and Mahinda don't have the same amount of love towards the country, just like the people. Our parents are still alive. We must look after them. We must look after our children and send them to school. This is a useless government. It must be sent home. The Medical Faculty Students Activists Committee marched from the Nilum Pokuna Theatre to the protest site.
Farmers continued their protests in many areas today. Some farmers of Giritale were among those who held demonstrations. They demanded chemical fertilizer and agrochemicals required for the Maha season and compensation for the crop damages during the last season. The protesters marched towards the residence of State Minister Siripala Gamlath. Farmers participated in religious observances afterwards. The fast carried out by the Giritale United Farmers Federation opposite the residence of State Minister Siripala Gamlath ran into its fourth day.
This is the voice of the people from day one. News First was with the people and it will continue to remain so. More news on the other side of this commercial break.
පුරා ගලන මේ සතුට සුරක්ෂිත කරන්නේ එස්ලෝන් ඉන්සයිට්. එස්ලෝන් ජීවයයි ජලයයි ජීවිතේ.
යස ඉසුරු පිරුණු තැනක් නෙවෙයිද? ලොකුම සල්ලි තියෙන තැන. අපේ සල්ලිත් පරිස්සම් නිසා.
ඉහළ ප්‍රතිලාභ සමගින් විශ්වාසනීය තැන්පතුවක්.
LB Yasa Isuru unparalleled rewards for a trusted deposit.
Welcome back to the news. Central Bank Governor Dr. Nandalal Veerasinghe says importers will have to make all payments through banking channels. He said the Finance Ministry will issue a gazette to prevent money from entering the country through informal channels like the Hawala and Undial systems.
A special program will be implemented where all importers will have to obtain a certification saying that they have made all payments through banking channels. If payments are made for imports outside this system, then those goods can't be cleared from the customs. That is the aim of this circular. For those who have already placed orders, we have given them 2 weeks until the consignments reach the country, but they won't be able to clear these goods after that. If the liquidity in the banking system increases, then we will be able to resolve the shortage of goods in a short period. Views were also expressed on the International Monetary Fund's debt program aimed at resolving the foreign exchange crisis.
Chinese ambassador journalist ට කතා කරලා කියනවා අපිට පැහැදීමක් නැහැ මෙහෙම debt default කරන්න ගත තීරණය ගැන.
They won't like it when we say that, but we won't repay our debt. When it reaches a certain point, we will repay the debt under new conditions. Until then, we can't pay it. The best solution we have is that an agreement must be reached with the creditors through discussions and start repaying the debt after a moratorium.
So who will be kind of overlooking that? I mean, who will be implementing that?
We will negotiate with them. This now, once we announce that we are going to treat everyone equally, so now our part is done. Then creditors will have to negotiate with us on that basis. If we get some concession from one creditor, we'll expect all the creditors will offer the same concession. Otherwise, it won't happen.
India credit line එක ඉවර වෙලා ඊට පස්සේ අපිට IMF එකේ සහාය ලැබෙනකම් කොහොමද රට පවත්වාගෙන යන්නේ?
මේ කාලය තුල
There may be a shortage of goods during this period. There was $1 billion in the Indian credit line. We have used only about 200 or 250 million US dollars. There is about 800 million US dollars remaining. There are about 500 million US dollars in liabilities to the Asian Clearing Union, which we have deferred. We can use that as well. We are to receive an additional 500 million US dollars for fuel imports.
දැන් සාමාන්‍ය මිනිස්සු අහන දේ තමයි අපිට කොච්චර කාලෙකින් IMF එකෙන් මුදල් ලබන පහසුකමකට ඇතුළත් වෙලා පළවෙනි වාරිකය ගන්න කොච්චර කාලයක් ඇයිද කියලා.
I can't provide a definite answer on that, but based on the current progress of talks, we can reach the first agreement in about 2 months. There will be a process running for about 2 or 3 weeks after that. The IMF Executive Board can then approve the first tranche. Journalists also question the central bank governor on the current situation in the banking sector.
There are shortages in lack of foreign currency liquidity in the banking sector at different levels. So state banks are facing higher liquidity shortages, and private banks are also facing a liquidity shortage for a forex liquidity to a certain extent. So that is different from rupee liquidity. That's how I want to give the assurance. And some of the, in terms of rupee liquidity, central bank, as any central bank, our key responsibility under the Mutual Act is to provide, we have provisions to provide any amount of liquidity in terms of when there is a liquidity shortfall in the banking system. So I am giving the assurance that in terms of rupee liquidity, either state banks or any banks, we are behind the banks, and we will give that assurance. We will provide pump in amount of liquidity.
Keeping you updated about more local news, the CID today informed the Kegol Magistrates Court that it has arrested 4 police officers for the shooting that killed 1 during protests in Ramukkana. The former senior superintendent of Kegol, who was in charge of the Kegol police jurisdiction at the time, who had issued the order to open fire, was among those arrested. The CID informed Kegol Magistrate Vasna Navaratna that the SSP is hospitalized and is under police custody.
The Criminal Investigations Department today informed the Kegol Magistrates Court that 3 police officers receiving treatment at the Kundasale Police Hospital have been arrested. This is in connection to the shooting during protests in Ramukkana recently. The Kegol Magistrate had informed the Colombo Magistrates Court to obtain a report from the Judicial Medical Officer on the Senior Superintendent of Police, who is hospitalized in Narahampita. He is facing charges of ordering the shooting. Kegol Magistrate Vasana Navaratna had informed the Teldenia Magistrates Court to obtain a judicial medical officer's report on the 3 other officers. A police sergeant who gave evidence in court recently had said that SSP Dharmaratna had ordered him to fire gunshots into the air. The prosecution then requested court to issue an order for the arrest of the 2 officers based on that testimony. The Kegol magistrate instructed the Criminal Investigations Department to summon the 2 officers to court during the next hearing on the 2nd of May. We requested to produce the firearms and uniforms of the police officers involved in the shooting to the government analyst. That is because the gunpowder in the bullet casing would remain on their clothes after gunshots are fired. The police officers who have been arrested are in hospital. 1 person had died and 13 injured in police gunfire in Rambukara on the 19th of April. The deceased was 41-year-old Chaminda Lakshan, a father of 2 from Rambukara. Colombo Additional Magistrate Charlene Pereira had ordered the senior superintendent, who is at the Narahampeta Hospital, to remain in custody until May 6th. Social media activist Anuruddha Bandara has filed a petition with the Supreme Court arguing that his rights were violated as a result of his arrest recently. He had been arrested on charges of publishing social media content that incites public unrest. 12 officials, including the senior DIG of the Western Province, DIG of Colombo Chandana Kumara, the IGP and the Director of the Criminal Investigations Department have been named as respondents. The petitioner has argued that the respondents had unlawfully arrested and detained him for allegedly criticizing the President on social media. He had said that his arrest and detention had violated his right to free speech as guaranteed by the Constitution. The petitioner has sought 100 million rupees in damages from the respondents for violating his human rights. We came to the Supreme Court today to file a fundamental rights application. On many occasions, we see police in Sri Lanka disrespecting the fundamental rights of the people and harming them. We believe the police will refrain from doing so in the future because they will be held responsible for any illegal measures they take.
In your weather update, the Met Department says showers or thunder showers can occur at several places in the western, southern, Sabaragamuwa, central and Uwa provinces and in Batclo and Ampara districts. Fairly heavy showers above 75 millimeters may occur at some places in western, Sabaragamuwa and central provinces and in Gaul and Matara districts. The Met Department has requested the people to take adequate precautions to minimize damages caused by strong winds and lightning during thunder showers.
The Haliyala Kandegedara road was inundated due to heavy rains last night. Four people were hospitalized in a lightning strike on their house in Bandarabella. Electrical appliances at their house had been damaged.
The Freedom Struggle March organized by the Samagi Jana Balawegaya reached Yakkala today.
The protest march commenced from Dannovita this morning. Opposition leaders Sajid Premadasa and several activists of the Samagi Jana Balawegaya participated in the protest march today.
රට කාපු පොදු පෙරමුණු මන්ත්‍රී මණ්ඩලය තුල ගහ ගන්නවා දැන් අච්චාරු වෙච්ච මණ්ඩලය අපිට කියනවා අන්තර්වාර ආණ්ඩුවකට එන්නලු.
The Sri Lanka Podujana Peramana parliamentarians who ruined this country are now fighting in their own den. After creating this mess, now they want us to join their interim government. We are going to reject their offer. The MPs are on auction today. They are in a gamble. They are offering various privileges to these MPs. These people are pioneers of sabotaging political parties. I need to make this clear. This is the Samagi Jana Balawegaya. Our members are not going to participate in this auction. We are not willing to be sold for money. We don't have underhand deals. I am getting calls throughout the day. They want me to join the interim government. They are even threatening me, saying that they will remove me from my post of opposition leader. I am ready to sacrifice my post. That is because I have the people on my side. The culprits who gained 600 million rupees through tax fraud are ready to spend that money to buy the votes of parliamentarians. We are against this cheap political culture. That is why the youth are staging this struggle. We will always be with you in this struggle.
ඔදු සහන ගත්තු කට්ටිය ඒ අය පංගුව තියාගෙන ඉන්නවලු മന്ത്രിවරු ගන්න මම එකක් කියන්න කැමති මේ තුච්ඡ දේශපාලන සංස්කෘතියට විරුද්ධවයි අර ජන අරගලේ තරුණ පරපුර නැගී සිටියේ අපි සදාකාලිකව ජන අරගලය සමගයි කියන එක ප්‍රකාශ කරමින්
The protesters will resume the march from Yakkala tomorrow morning and will reach Paliyagora in the afternoon. They will reach Colombo on the 1st of May. Trade unions who were on strike yesterday explained their future course of action at a media briefing today.
Yesterday we saw Namal saying that the medicine taken for a fever can't be used for a common cold. We don't need a fever or a common cold. We will only provide treatment for this once. If they don't understand the purpose of our strike yesterday, we will take severe action on the 6th.
අපි 6 වෙනිදා උණවිකාරයටයි හෙම්බිරිස්සාවටයි දෙකටම බෙහෙත් දීලා දෙන්නයි පරම්පරාවයි දෙකම ගෙදර යවනවා කියන කාරණේ අවධාරණය කරනවා. ඒතකොට දැන් අන්තර්පාලාන්
With whom are they going to form an interim government? President Gotabaya and Prime Minister Mahinda are trying to form a government. Stop these jokes. The protesters didn't ask for an interim government. The constitution doesn't speak about an interim government either. The protesters are chanting Gota go home. Even amidst that, Gotabaya is trying to remain in power. They are asking him to go home. If he doesn't understand the meaning of the word go, we won't have any option but to chase him away.
තේරෙන්නේ නැත්තම් පොඩා යන්න go මේ ඔක්කොම කියනවා. ඉතින් තව තේරෙන්නේ නැත්තම් පන්නනේ කරවෙන කරන්න දෙයක් නැහැ.
They are trying to form a new cabinet within the current government. Will they be able to provide solutions to the problems faced by the people, including the collapse of the education sector? We know that they can't answer these questions.
ජීවන වියදම ඉහළ යාම අධ්‍යාපන පද්ධතිය කඩා වැටීම මේවට උත්තර දෙන්න පුළුවන්ද? අපි දන්නා මේවට උත්තර දෙන්න බෑ.
කුමන්ත්‍රණයක් සිද්ධ වෙමින් තියෙනවා. ඒ කුමන්ත්‍රණය
There is a conspiracy. The conspiracy is that they are propagating a demand that has not been made by the protesters, that is to go for elections. An election may be held amidst this political instability in the future, but the people need to be ensured of many rights amidst this instability. This opportunity can be used to chase away the president and the prime minister and even abolish the executive presidency.
විධායක ජනාධිපති ක්‍රමය අහෝසි කරන්න මේ අවස්ථාව උදා ගන්න පුළුවන්.
If the government thinks that it can remain in power by exerting pressure and by using various tactics, then that is a joke. If they don't bow down to the people's mandate in the next few days, we will take the maximum possible trade union action.
අභිවෘද්ධි සමිති ව්‍යාපාරයේ විදියට ගන්න පුළුවන් උපරිම ක්‍රියාමාර්ගවලට යනවා.
Area residents raised strong objection towards State Minister Sivanesathurai Chandrakanthan, also known as Pillan. This is during the launch of a fish breeding program in Batiklo today. We are going to leave you with the footage of this event. Thank you very much for watching Primetime News. This is News First and we are with the people.
Shoals of fry were released into a farm as part of a breeding program in Vakare today. Residents staged a protest accusing the state minister of carrying out the project in a way that would benefit only some people. They pointed out that this has posed a threat to fishing in the area. The dispute led to a brawl between area residents and the associates of State Minister Sivanesathurai Chandrakanthan.